Luca. So I actually have a vote with the straw poll, and I had Luca third in my voting. So I by that, like I don't agree with the fifth place. But it is like, I mean, there's almost like, it really depends what you look at, what you prioritize. But like, obviously, I mean, I think OKC and Denver just have better teams than the Lakers. So that's naturally going to give Shea and Jokic an advantage in terms of typically an MVP is on like a top 2 or 3 seed team. There are some exceptions like Russ in 2017, but I would also argue that Russ in 2017 is looked at as like one of the worst recent MVP seasons. And like some people, we've had voters come out and say like they made a mistake voting for Russ, or that, you know, they wish they voted for someone else. So I just think like that kind of sets a precedent of like you kind of have to be a top 2 or 3 seed. I think the pathway for Luka to winning MVP would be Lakers being the 3 seed. I think if they're 4 or lower, he just doesn't have a shot. But what that did show me is I think he's a long shot to win MVP, just because if he's going to be 5th behind Cade and Wemby, like Jokic is close to being out due to the game's missed rule. Yep. Wemby is also somewhat close, but he's still behind then Shea and Cade with like I would say like 70 to 80% of the people voting are going to have MVP votes. So this is pretty reflective of the general consensus around MVP voters. I think Luka's in a tough spot there where like if he's 5th right now, I think he has a pretty big mountain to climb in terms of getting into the top 3 or even just winning it. But I had him 3rd. I think he's the 3rd best player in the NBA. Again, comparing him to Shea and Jokic, those guys clear him in every advanced metric. They actually clear him too. And like I know a big argument for Laker fans or Luka fans who think he should be MVP is like, we'll look at his supporting cast versus those other teams. But like those other teams actually have like Jokic. There's a bigger on-off difference with Denver with Jokic on versus off than there is with Luka. There's a bigger on-off difference with OKC with Shea on off than there is with Luka. So like even the gap between on and off is actually like almost double with both of those guys compared to Luka. So there is like those guys have been the best 2 players in the league. I think those are the 2 best MVP candidates, but I would have Luka 3rd. Clearly a lot of people barely have him on the ballot, which I found surprising.
Yeah, that doesn't suggest that he's got a great shot at it. I think it would basically require SGA to fall off in terms of the games played. That becoming an issue, and even then, it probably defaults to Cade. Maybe Wemby can get in there. I think Luka at some point can win an MVP, but I think what it's going to take is the Lakers, as you said, being the 3 seed in the West. But even if they're the 3 seed, there's still going to be a gap between the Lakers and the top 2. Like there's a group competing for 3 right now, including Denver, Houston. Phoenix maybe falling off with some injuries that they've had so far, the Wolves. But even if they're the 3 seed, they're still going to be seen as a gap between the Lakers and those top 2. And certainly when we look at the top of the East. And I've long said I think we factor in team success too much in the MVP voting, that it should be more of an individual award and it shouldn't just automatically go to whatever team is the number 1 or the number 2 seed in their conference. But that said, I would agree with you that Luka should be 3rd on the list. But whether he's 3rd or 5th, I don't think he's actually winning it this season. I think narrative matters a lot around teams. The Lakers have had a lot of turmoil this season, a lot of ups and downs. Hasn't been a lot of consistency. They haven't had the big statement wins. All of that, I think, is going to matter. So I don't see Luka actually coming away with the award. Now, I will say if he never wins an MVP, that would be certainly a disappointment. But we came into the season saying it was possible for him to win the MVP this season. For a lot of reasons, I don't think that's going to happen. At some point, he needs to check that box and get one. Hopefully, it'll happen next season.
All right, quick break. And this one's actually something I've been using personally. Cold days, big games, busy schedule, no time to cook. That's why I've been rocking with Factor. I've been ordering their Protein Plus meals, especially the grilled chicken with roasted veggies. Perfect for me because I'm trying to keep my energy high for shows without feeling heavy after eating. What I like about Factor, quality ingredients, lean proteins, real veggies, whole food fats, no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils, and it fits the schedule. They've got 100 rotating meals weekly: keto, calorie smart, Mediterranean, GLP-1 support, even a new Muscle Pro collection for strength and recovery. And the convenience is crazy. Always fresh, never frozen, ready in about 2 minutes. No prep, no stress. I use this, and you guys should too, especially if you're balancing work, school, gym, and Lakers games every night. Head to factormeals.com/LakersPod50off and use code LakersPod50off to get your 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for a year. That's 50% off and a free breakfast item in every box for a year while your subscription is still active.
Jason, where are you at on Luka and his play?
I actually have him fourth. I'd put Cade above him. I think Cade actually has like a pretty decent long shot MVP case. I think Shea's clearly going to win. I think Jokic is going to end up getting eliminated by missing a game or two at some point. I think he only has to miss 2 more to get eliminated. So I guess if there's one method for Luka to move up to third, it would be Jokic dropping out entirely. But then again, Luka himself could end up dropping out entirely if he ends up getting another, week-long injury. But it really is this simple to me. If Luka's case is because Luka does not bring any sort of additional element to the table. Like Cade's actually a pretty damn good two-way player. Like Cade's showed some real defensive chops this season at various points. Jokic in particular, if you're going the offensive engine route, like, Luka's this deeply valuable offensive engine, I think Jokic is just better than him at that. Shea at this point has even been better than him at that specifically. The case for Cade, though, is best player on best team in the league. I think the Pistons have been far and away the most successful regular season team this year. Their record is slightly better than OKC, and they've been way, 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 way better against the best teams in the league. Detroit has had just marquee win after marquee win after marquee win. So, to me, Cade just has a much better MVP case because if it's just who's the best player, yeah, you're probably going to take Luka. But Cade just has all these other feathers in his cap that traditionally get factored in for MVP. As far as the big picture goes with Luka, I kind of talked about this a little bit on my show last week, but in order for Luka to eventually become a guy that isn't just a preseason hype man for MVP, but a guy who's actually in contention for it, he's got to improve his floor. Jovan and I actually talked about this last week when we were doing player grades, but I think Luka's ceiling is potentially the highest in the entire NBA, and it's because of the three-point shot and the playmaking. Shea and Jokic, neither of those two are capable of having games where they hit 8 or 9 threes by just getting step-back threes off because that's how good they are with their size at getting step-back threes off. Luka can. Luka can get to this point where when he's got his step-back three going, he's the most unguardable player in the NBA because he brings the short-range scoring of Nikola Jokic, the off-the-dribble shot-making of Shea with the efficiency of Steph Curry at the three-point line and the playmaking of the best passers in the league. Luka's ceiling might be the highest ceiling in the entire NBA, but the floor is just so much lower. He's so much more turnover-prone than any of those guys. He's so much more prone to cold shooting nights than any of those guys. He is by far the worst defensive player on that list. There's just a much lower floor there. Luka will have a game like last night where, by the way, he shot the three reasonably well, but he was 1 for 11 on twos outside of the restricted area where he just can't make any of those shots. And all of a sudden it's if they're running drop coverage and they're guarding 2-on-2 and you can't hit those shots, you're not anywhere close to the offensive engine that some of these other guys in the league are. Shea will be able to just get all the way to the rim as a slasher a bunch to be able to counteract that, right? Or Jokic will be able to get closer to the basket so he's less susceptible to variance. Guys like Cade or Giannis have more two-way kind of potential. I think the floor with Luka has to be addressed if he ever wants to win an MVP.
Yeah, agree with that. I think that's something that's got to improve with him. Will he get there?